this was a request by Aldin I'm going to butcher this. Aldin Delalic 1111. So thank you, Aldin, for the request. And I know you said a couple of times, like, still waiting for the Conjuring video. Here it is. So I hope you enjoy. And throughout the video, well, I think I've got a couple of articles we're going to go through essentially. But I guess I should probably introduce what the Conjuring is for those of you that don't know. There are, I believe, 3 Conjuring movies now, plus the Annabelle movies, plus The Nun. I actually haven't watched The Conjuring 3 yet. Loved 1 and 2, but The Nun was just so bad I kind of just lost faith. The Annabelles are okay, like they've got their scary moments, but in my opinion they don't live up to the scariness of Conjuring 1 and 2. Let me know if 3 is any good and whether I should watch it. I believe it's based on like a real life court case. The Devil Made Me Do It, I believe it's called. But I remember, I believe when Conjuring 1 came out, there was so much hype around it. And I really think it like injected life back into that subgenre of horror. And I believe I just turned 15 or 16 when it came out, so like the age you were allowed to go and watch it at the cinema, and it ruined me. I was still back then a bit of a baby when it came to horror movies, but this is a particularly scary. It's just a very, very well done scary movie, and The Conjuring 2 is, like, some people hate on it, but I really like it. I think the switch up to the UK is obviously cool, and it helped that I was familiar with the case that this movie is based on, because it was a real, the Enfield Haunting was like a real life sort of case. And back then there was a lot of debate over whether it was real or whether it was a hoax, and the family was sort of staging it to make a bit of money and get a bit of press. But yeah, big fan of the movies. Annabelle obviously now a very iconic image, and Valak the Nun very iconic as well. So, scary movies, if you haven't watched them, you definitely should watch them, because most of them in this Conjuring universe are very good, especially 1 and 2. So, I think that introduces my sort of views on the movies and what they are. But I think this first article will probably get into it a little bit as well. So this article is titled "The True Story of the Conjuring, the Perron Family and Enfield Haunting." So I think it's going to talk a little bit about both of the movies. The actual true story of the Conjuring, namely the Perron Family and Enfield Haunting, is scarier than the movies themselves, apparently. When The Conjuring was released in 2013, it was met with critical acclaim. Critics everywhere praised it for its all-too realistic portrayal of the demonic haunting of an innocent family in Rhode Island. Most viewers assumed the movie was nothing but the wild imaginings of director James Wan. However, the true story of The Conjuring is actually rooted in a horrifying true experience of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed Warren was a World War II veteran and a former police officer who became a self-professed demonologist after studying the subject on his own. His wife Lorraine claimed to be a clairvoyant medium who most famous cases, however, were heavily popularised by the Conjuring franchise, a series of movies that focuses on Ed and Lorraine's experiences exorcising demons from two possessed families. Though the movies seem over-dramatised and impossible to believe, the Warrens maintain that all of the events depicted actually transpired. Though Ed died in 2006, Lorraine was a consultant on the film and claims that she didn't let the directors take any more dramatic license than was necessary. Nevertheless, the true story of The Conjuring remains the most unbelievably chilling to this day. So, the true story, the Perron family. The true story of The Conjuring begins with the first film, which focuses on the Perron family. In January 1971, the family moved into a 14-room farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, where Carol and Roger and their 5 daughters began to notice strange things almost immediately after they moved in. It started small. Carolyn would notice that the broom went missing, or seemed to move from place to place on its own. She would hear the sound of something scraping against the kettle in the kitchen when no one was in there. She'd find small piles of dirt in the centre of a newly cleaned kitchen floor. So you see, this is my issue with potentially ghosts in real life, if this is real. And movies, like, why do they just insist on being a nuisance? Like, if I found a pile of dirt on the floor in my kitchen that I just cleaned, I wouldn't be scared, I'd be pissed off. Anyway, the girls begin to notice spirits around the house, though for the most part, they're harmless. There were a few, however, that were angry. Angry spirits, in my experience, that tends to be whiskey. Anyway, Carolyn allegedly researched the history of the home and discovered that it had been in the same family for 8 generations, and that many of them had died under mysterious or horrible circumstances. Several of the children had drowned in a nearby creek. One was murdered and a few of them hanged themselves in the attic. The spirit that was depicted in the film Bathsheba was the worst of them all. Whoever the spirit was, she perceived herself to be mistress of the house, and she resented the competition my mother posed for that position, said Andrea Perron, the oldest of the 5 girls. It turns out there was actually a real person named Bathsheba Sherman, who lived on the Perrons' property in the mid-1800s. She was rumoured to have been a Satanist, and there was evidence that she had been involved in the death of a neighbour's child, though no trial ever took place. She was buried in a nearby Baptist cemetery in downtown Harrisville. The Perrons believe that it was Bathsheba's spirit that was tormenting them. According to Andrea, the family experienced other spirits as well, that smelled like rotting flesh and would cause beds to rise off the floor. She claims her father would enter the basement and feel a cold, stinking presence behind him. They often stayed away from the dirt-floored cellar, but their heating equipment would often fail mysteriously, causing Roger to venture down. Over the 10 years that the family lived in the house, the Warrens made multiple trips to investigate. At one point, Lorraine conducted a séance to attempt to contact the spirits that were possessing the family. During the séance, Carolyn Perron became possessed, speaking in tongues and rising from the ground in her chair. Andrea claims to have secretly witnessed the séance. I thought I was going to pass out, Andrea said. My mother began to speak a language not of this world, in a voice not her own. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room. Though the movie version of events culminates with Ed performing an exorcism rather than a séance, Lorraine insists that she and her husband would never attempt one, as they must be performed by Catholic priests. After the séance, Roger kicked the turns out, worried about his wife's mental stability. According to Andrea, the family continued to live in the house due to financial instability until they were able to move in 1980, at which point the spirits were silenced and the haunting ceased. Interesting. We now move on to the Enfield Haunting, which the second film centres around. So 6 years after the Perron family was terrorised by their demon, another family in Enfield, England, began to experience similar things. In August of 1977, the Hodgson family started seeing and hearing strange things. Janet, who was 11 at the time, recalls sitting up in bed to see her dresser slide across the room that she shared with her brother. "We shouted, 'Mum, Mum,' said Janet. We were sort of frightened but also intrigued." Later, the family began to hear knocking coming from all sorts of places around the house. She remembers her mum thinking there were burglars or drifters hiding out in their home and calling the police to investigate. The officer who arrived reported witnessing a chair rise up and move across the floor on its own. Reporters from the Daily Mirror were also called in to report on the Enfield Haunting, experienced them for themselves too. Legos and marbles were reported flying around the room, hot to the touch when picked up. Clothing folded on tabletops would leap off of them and fly across the room. The sound of dogs barking would be heard in empty rooms, lights would flicker, coins would drop out of thin air, and furniture would spin or tip over without being touched. Then one day, the iron fireplace in an upstairs bedroom was ripped out of the wall. After that, paranormal investigators from all around the world showed up, claiming to be able to contact spirits and wanting to know more about the Enfield Haunting. Most of them decided that the children had been faking their experiences, as one of them had admitted to doing so on one occasion, but the Warrens were different. They showed up and immediately believed that a demonic presence was present. However, their claims were overlooked, as a noted skeptic at the time accused Ed Warren of exaggerating and even making up incidents, often transforming a haunting into one case of demonic possession. This is where the story differs from the movie, as there was no exorcism-like practice from the Warrens. In 1979, 2 years after they began, the hauntings abruptly stopped, though the family maintains they did nothing to stop them. Interesting. Why would they? I don't really understand why they would suddenly stop, so maybe it was the family just wanting some attention, because I believe they were really poor. And I imagine they tried to sell the story for money, but I'm not sure. Whereas with the first one, I don't really know. Hopefully nothing ever, happens to me, but until something happens, to myself, then I'm just always sadly going to be a little bit of a skeptic. I think in a previous video I've explained that one vague recurring experience I've had with what could be a ghost, but it could be like something else. I don't know. But if it did happen, sorry. Like watching this video. Anyway, moving on. Going back to the first Conjuring movie. Gonna read this article titled "We Tried It. I spent a night at the real-life Conjuring House, and yes, I think it's haunted." Now, if any of you are really interested in this Conjuring House, you've probably watched this video, but go and watch Sam and Colby did such a good video, and for the most part, I do think Sam and Colby's videos are fake, but even though they're fake, they're so entertaining because they're so well edited and they're really good at building that suspense and making it scary. So yeah, Sam and Colby, I think they did a few videos videos in the Conjuring House and like on the grounds and stuff. So, Peoples. So this is a People article. Peoples, Julie Jordan and a few girlfriends braved a terrifying night at the Rhode Island farmhouse that inspired the hit horror franchise. To be honest, I don't really care for horror movies, but I love being scared. Those traits served me well when I found out the house that inspired the hit franchise The Conjuring could be booked for overnight stays. ASMR video. That would be original. Doing ASMR in a haunted Conjuring house, that would go unbelievably hard. 1 million likes. The property is infamous for some creepy events that happened in the 70s, involving paranormal investigators, the Warrens, and the haunting of the Parent family. I think it was my friend Kelly's fault, or idea, to travel to Rhode Island and tackle the Conjuring house, now known as the Farm on Roundup Road. We flew into Providence and drove a little more than 30 minutes to Harrisville. Winding country roads brought us to the old clapboard colonial, currently owned by Corey and Jennifer Heinzen, who bought the property in 2019. The couple met us at the door and gave us a tour. Opening up the house for overnight investigations had always been their plan. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, Corey explains at the purchase. Originally from Maine, the two have been involved with the paranormal community for years, as well as have made a point of clarifying the truth from the dramatisation of the movies. Corey informed us that there have been no violent deaths recorded in the house. The witch in the movie, Bathsheba Sherman, was simply a neighbour during the 1800s. As grateful as we were for the knowledge, it didn't make us any less fearful of the evening ahead. We knew when we bought it that we wanted to be able to share it with other people, adds Jennifer, noting they haven't experienced anything negative. Why keep a place like this to ourselves? Built in 1836, the house itself is farmhouse rustic with an occasional Ouija board and raggedy handle thrown in for good measure. Past paranormal activity has included books falling off the shelf by themselves, and shadow figures are often seen in the upstairs bedroom where one of the parent daughters was frequently attacked by an unseen force. The Heinzens stay on the property in an annex of the house during all overnight bookings. Nothing about us argues with them. Around 11 PM, we started our investigation in the library and turned off all the lights. Within minutes, a nearby motion detector was triggered repeatedly for no apparent reason. There were also loud creaks in the living room as if someone was walking by. Upstairs, we sat down in the bedroom where the attacks took place. Again, a motion detector went off and we saw a ball of light in a corner where there was no obvious source. Shadows seemed to be closing in on us, and all our terror prompted us to pile in the bed. There's just something about 4 grown women snuggling together that can clearly make things feel a lot less scary. Downstairs in the basement was a lesson in just how hard it is to navigate in the dark. All of your senses become heightened and every little noise causes a jump scare. And don't get us started on how many snakeskins dangle from the foundation, left exactly where their former occupants discarded them. As we were standing in a room next to an old well, a table somehow shifted into Liz's leg even though no one was next to it. We returned to the library in the wee morning hours. I had taken some books off one of the shelves and right after I replaced them, one of them fell off and hit the floor hard. We can't say for sure what caused it, but I'm OCD enough to know that I pushed them all to the back wall and even aligned them on the top because I didn't want them to look disturbed. Calling it a night around 4:30 AM, investigations through